All right, it's time to talk NASCAR. We have a busy show because there was a lot of stuff that took place on Sunday that we can recap. And that's usually a good thing.
Yep.
And then we're of course going to preview this week's race at Richmond. But first, before we do that, Eric, let's go back and talk about Pocono. Can you believe it? Doesn't it figure that once we were able to get rid of what we just had seen for years as just two boring Pocono races a year, now we have one race, and it turns out to be one of the better races of the season.
Yeah, isn't that funny how that works? It goes to show how when you go down to one race, the crowd comes back because it's like the circus. You only see it once.
Yeah.
And it usually is more intense because that's the only time you're going to race there too. And that one, it delivered. I was doing my IndyCar thing with Iowa, and I was seeing your and CJ's messages. I'm like, what am I missing right now? I was finishing up, and a lot of times, full transparent, there's some races where it's pretty easy if I'm doing my IndyCar thing to catch up with NASCAR because there's sometimes not a lot going on. That race had a lot going on. So it kind of started early with Logano and Suarez and their wreck at the end of the stage, and it went all the way to the end. So that was definitely something worth watching.
Yeah. So as far as the race, and we can just look, the fact was nobody's trying to sit here and say that Denny Hamlin didn't deserve to win because Hamlin did have one of the better cars, but strategy worked out for him in the end. Looked like Truex might have been the best car. You think Truex was the best car?
Yeah, I think he
By a little
probably.
bit.
Yeah, I'll lump him and
Larson,
I'll say the Toyotas.
probably Larson too.
Larson had to go in. Yeah, I'd say probably whoever had the clean air at the time was always going to probably be best. So I'd say Toyotas in general and Larson were probably your best cars. Whoever had the lead out of that group was going to be the one that's going to look the best. But they were all pretty close.
Yeah, and it looked like what happened to Blaney again? Something happened. I forget. I was watching and I remember. I remember coming off pit road right behind Byron, I think, at the time. They were first and second.
Yeah.
And then about like 2 minutes later, when everything kind of reshuffled, he was like way back. And I have no idea what happened. And then that was it for him. So one of those things where whatever strategy they were working on just certainly didn't help.
I think they were on a different strategy, I think. I know Byron was too. Some guys are going, same deal we talked about. Sometimes they're going to go for points. Some of them are gambled in other
Byron,
direction.
I think with those late tires, I think they were hoping for like 3 restarts at the end.
They were hoping. Chaos. Yeah, it just didn't work.
No. So it is what it is. But yeah, it turned out to be a fun race, and but what happened at the end? So we can kind of start with the Hamlin-Larson deal. And it's a Tuesday, so that's the only plus, of course, about having the show on Thursday is we get a little bit more information to share. We're going to go over on a Thursday show. It's very early. It's the early afternoon on Tuesday, so not a lot of information we have yet to share with you regarding what everybody's saying, especially the drivers. But let's pop up let's first take a look. We're going to start with this is the Larson. Is this the in camera?
Yeah, and the audio too. Yeah.
Oh, we got the audio for that too. Okay.
Yep.
Well, we didn't say we're on our radio, but wait till you hear that they talk on
Can you
radio.
hear that, by the way?
I'll just leave it at that.
I can't. I could read. I mean, luckily I can read it. The caption.
That's the penalty. He's such a crybaby. The he does to people. I know he's your buddy and all, but good grief, man. Have we seen the stuff he does to people? He got a lane. There was more than a lane. This choice is staying in. Yeah, they just showed the replay. Hell, it's not even close. You're 100% right.
Yeah, I don't. I got to tell you, when it comes to Larson, I think the problem is he's just a little small dude.
Yep.
If he was like Bubba Wallace, then I think he would have probably popped out of the car and we would have had a fight.
Oh yeah, I think Larson's mentioned that before. That I'm not a fighter. I'm too small. That's talk bad about myself, but they'd all beat me up. So I'm not looking for a fight. And I think, look, if you go down to a couple videos, because Larson said too about how he's comparing it to the Ross Chastain, how Denny was paying Ross Chastain back last year in the same corner, and he put him in the wall. And if you look at this, and NASCAR had that video on there comparing the two, they did look very similar instances between Larson and Hamlin and Chastain. And I get Hamlin's side, like I didn't touch him. We didn't have to touch him. The air can push you into the wall. And he meant they're right in the sense that, well, Larson could have backed out of it. He didn't have to stay in the gas, but Larson was also leading the race at the end of the day too. At that point, he was going in the turn. He had the lead. Hamlin just did, granted, he wanted to get his 50th win. That was the side of his first win. There's sentimental things on the table with it was like a keepsake from his grandma. They thought they lost. They found it, they put it on his dash before practice on Saturday. I mean, he was going for it. And I think it goes to show that's NASCAR these days. And I mean, Hamlin's defense, if he didn't do it, somebody else was going to. And unfortunately, that's not the way it used to be. Or unfortunately, that's not the way it used to be. But now that's the way it is. And that's the second race that Larson, who was leading, that Hamlin took him out in. And then coincidentally enough, those are the last two Hamlin wins. So I think it was a perfect storm. Truex mentioned, I saw in his quotes that he thought Hamlin roughed him up, thought it was a dirty move. Hamlin saying it's not at all, but I think that video says a lot. It wasn't necessarily something that – I don't think Hamlin pushed him in the wall. I still struggle to see any contact.
Yeah, I agree with that, sure.
However, air creates contact too.
And they know that.
They know that. Hamlin knows that. So him squeezing Larson, you didn't have to touch him. The air and Larson staying in the gas. There was no way he wasn't going to hit the wall. So – I can see these two the way they are. They are friends. They said this isn't going to affect their friendship. I don't know how it doesn't, but they're saying it's not going to affect it. But they're not going to agree over this. Hamlin's not backing down. Larson's not going to back down because in Larson's standpoint, he's right. The air, Larson probably felt contact, which it was the air. It put him into the wall. They're two opposite sides, and I don't see it being any different in the future.
Didn't Hamlin? Wasn't he involved in an incident earlier with the same drafting? Didn't he draft someone in the driver wreck?
I thought that happened at some point too. Yeah, I do know he did it to Larson in Kansas, if you remember. In the last lap, he was drafted him and he squeezed him off turn 2 wall. Could be what you're thinking of.
No,
he won that race.
It was Pocono. It was earlier in the race,
okay.
And he got behind, and he got in. I just can't remember who it was, but because I kind of remember it being wow. I mean, that's the second time he's done that. I'm pretty sure it was Hamlin. Anyway, so all right. Well, if anybody watching knows what I'm saying, I'm sure they'll let us know. Okay, so anyway. Look, I'm not going to sit here and even though I had Larson to win, I'm not going to sit here and defend Kyle Larson because I don't know how many times I've been in situations where I've had another driver and Larson was, in my opinion, overly aggressive and it cost my driver. So it happens to all of them. Most of them, it happens. So I don't feel sorry for Larson. What I don't like and didn't like about the race, once again, NASCAR found a way when we were all having a good time and everybody was really angry with each other after the race. So it was one of the better races of the year. And what do? They screw it up again by not calling the caution when anybody would have called the caution with the brain in their head. It's like, dude, how do you not? I mean, you people have been screaming about drama all the time. You want late race drama. You to the point where you do stupid things that you shouldn't. Here's a perfect thing. Nobody would have said anything. Everybody would have been okay, fine. And he stalled anyway, so they would have been proven right to have called the caution. And they wait, and then of course they call the caution, so we have to end the race on a yellow flag, which nobody wants to do, because if they would have called the caution when that would have happened, I think Reddick wins the race.
Probably, and that's where I think where they get themselves in trouble is they're not consistent because there's so many times hey, he didn't even touch the wall and they're throwing a caution. Like, what are we doing? And then there's times like that where it's like it's this polar opposite. It's like, what are they waiting on?
They're waiting for Hamlin to get to one lap so they could call the caution and end the race under yellow. That's what it seemed like they were waiting for.
Yeah, and that's where NASCAR gets themselves in trouble with that. They're not consistent. It's sometimes called one way and sometimes called the other way. And this is a prime example because I think we've seen it before too. It's like you threw the caution when the guy was already taking the white. There's nothing back there. Let him race to the finish. Why are we throwing a caution here? And then that one, it's pretty egregious. I mean, he lost power he spun across the track. He was sitting back there, and what were you thinking was going to happen? Even let's just say he gets going again. His tires were clearly flat. He wasn't going to be able to drive it. He's going to be a hazard to those guys coming around there. So either way, it wasn't going to be a win. So that was a questionable ending when a lot of other times I've seen them call cautions for far less, far quicker. It's almost like their finger's already on the button and they accidentally clicked it type caution.
Yeah, right.
This one, it was, where are they?
It's look, if maybe that was the fourth restart and now we're getting to the point where it's getting unfair, all right, fine. I wouldn't even say anything. But it just made no sense to not do it, especially when, how do you not look at, you'd have drama. Isn't that what we're supposed to do here? Let's do a restart. Let's do something. Let's have some fun. No, we're not going to do that. We're just going to do the opposite of what's fun. So, yeah. And then, what was the next one? Dylan, right? Was that the next
Austin
one?
Dylan. The next one down on this one, if we're going to talk about, is the Priest. We can segue into it. It's right
Where
here.
Where is it?
Go down one more. Or after Ty Gibbs here. Right there.
Right there.
Priest and LaJoy. Yep.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so let me restart this.
Which this is the incident we're talking about. This is a perfect segue into it, actually.
Is anybody nobody's talking here?
It's more of a replay
of
what happened. So you got both their angles here.
So let's see that again.
Kind of looks like a racing deal.
Okay, so that's Priest, that's LaJoy. Okay. And Priest is the upset one.
Yes.
So let's see. Oh, I couldn't see anything. What am I looking at?
It just looked like they were side by side. That's why I kind of struggled.
Oh, they're side by side?
Yeah, because watching, you'll see. Look at LaJoy's here in a second. You're going to see Priest right next to him, right there. See his door?
Okay.
So,
that was
I don't think it merited him freaking out the way he did. It's coming to the last lap. LaJoy was clearly already on the inside. Unless there's another video, I've only seen the onboards. Unless there's another video, like of a higher up going into the turn, it just looked like a racing deal. It looked like he was already on the inside of him and spun him. There's the. I don't think that merited that by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think Priest is frustrated, which we'll get to him when we get into our odds for later. I think just a combination of all. He's just having a rough year, and he just didn't appreciate being spun. But I don't know. I don't really know what more he could have done.
And here's Hamlin.
Yep.
To Larson, yeah.
See, look how high he is already. He keeps saying he left him a lane, but that lane that lane is going straight to the wall.
Yeah, come on.
That's a lane, but that's not a lane you're going to come out the other side on.
Now, did he do this because he knew Larson was a better car?
I think he knew what Truex said. You had to be in the lead. I think he wanted the clean air, and so he knew that was his time to do it.
Well, he was even with him, so he must have thought Larson had a better car then.
Yeah, I think he knew he was threatened by him, and he thought, hey, I'm going to go for it. And I'm like, right here. Look how low he is, and look how him squeeze up.
Yeah.
Look at Harvick. Look where Harvick is on the – or not Harvick. Who is that on the bottom there?
That is Harvick, I think, isn't it?
I think Harvick's right. Might have been Truex. Yeah, Truex.
Oh,
look how low he is. Yeah. And look where Hamlin ends up.
He's over now where Harvick is, yeah.
Yeah. He could have been lower. If he said he wanted to give him room,
Yeah,
You
that
gave
was
him no room.
nonsense.
So I didn't agree with his assessment there. But that's NASCAR. That's what it is these days. That's where we are with it. They just
Oh boy.
you got to be aggressive to win. So
Yeah, and look,
unfortunately,
we have no problem. Again, I have no problem with that. I just, it's, I, the only thing is, seriously, because if I'm a Denny Hamlin guy and I got money on Denny Hamlin, that's what I want my driver to do.
Yeah.
Sorry, just is. I'm like, go ahead, squeeze him out, give me the money. I don't care. I don't care how I win. Now, if I'm Kyle Larson's guy, which I had, obviously I'm upset. I'm not happy about it. But yeah, I just would have, again, I just think it would have been better if Larson would have handled it a little bit more physically. So.
Well, I think that plays a role, and Hamlin knows that. I think that is also, if he knew that he was going to get pummeled by a Carl Edwards-looking guy is going to come out and beat your brains in, you probably aren't going to make that move.
Yeah.
But Larson, he's not going to fight you. And let's be honest. Did he leave him? He said he left him a lane. So you break that down. Yes, he left him one, but that lane was going into the wall.
Yeah.
You could have been a little more respectful. I agree, make the move. And at the end of the day, he didn't wreck him. He didn't push him into the wall. He didn't spin him.
No, he didn't.
But he squeezed him to where, and yes, hey, Larson could have backed out. But he, too, is going for a win, which I think is something we're going to have to watch because Larson basically said, I'm going to race him differently now, and we're going to a short track this weekend. So I'm curious, and there's probably going to be a chance they're going to be around each other. So does Larson issue any sort of payback? Because you're going slow enough at Richmond, you can probably take them out. So what happens if that scenario comes right back here Sunday and they're restarting the front row? Don't you kind of have to make a payback
Absolutely.
there if you are Larson?
100%. And I would expect he would do that.
You'd have to. And granted, I know you don't want to ever use a race car as a weapon, but
well, yeah,
this
we're not
is your
saying
last
to do
chance.
that. But yeah, it's still,
you could squeeze him
Sure.
the way he squeezed you.
Yeah.
Because I got that one of my things for my 5 things I'm watching for this weekend. That's one of them because you got to look. You're not going to pay somebody back at Michigan next week. That's too fast of a track. You're not going to do it at Watkins Glen because there's those Armco barriers all the way around. You're not going to do it at Daytona. And Indy's a road course, so you kind of get strung out. I don't really know where an opportunity you're going to pay somebody back on an Indy road course. This is it. This is probably your last chance because if you're Larson, why would you want to – if I'm him and even – I guess when we get into Austin Dillon and Reddick, you don't want to create enemies in the playoffs. If you're a playoff driver, you don't want to risk that. If I'm Larson, I don't want to pay Hamlin back at Bristol in September or later down because he might get mad enough to pay you back later down the line. Sure. He might think because Hamlin doesn't think he did anything wrong, and that's the problem. So if you pay him back, he's going to want to pay you back. So if you're going to pay him back, why not do it with those tracks that I just said coming up to where this is the time to do it. So that. I did take that into consideration making my picks. Granted, I picked them both, but I did wonder that in my brain. Like, hey, Hamlin's got one coming for him. This could be the week.
Yeah, that's kind of why I stayed away from him this week. Because it's not just Larson. I'm sure there's a few other drivers that would like payback on Hamlin too. So, yeah. The other thing is if Larson's if he feels he has a better car, though,
yeah,
I wouldn't do it. I'd be like, I got a better car, I'll beat you that way. So, or
you kill him with the anticipation, like, when's he going to do it? When's he going to do it? When's he going to just don't do it? Just hey, I'm going to let him think I'm not going to do it, and then I'm going to do it. But yeah, if you got a good car, you don't want to definitely don't want to waste a good car on payback because you can take yourself out in the process. So you don't want to do that either.
I was looking over the futures. So Truex is now the favorite. No surprise at 5-1. And Kyle's back to being a pretty decent price at 8-1.
Mm-hmm.
Chastain is still pretty decent at 11. Blaney 12, and Elliott is 12. So you got Elliott now 12-1. He's 16-1 this week. So Vegas is starting to lose faith.
I'll be honest, I am too, but I also, it's Chase Elliott. All it takes is one win, and that momentum
sure.
changes. And what his odds are, if he was 8-1, I probably wouldn't be picking him right now.
Yeah.
The way he keeps coming down. The shocker to me is Kevin Harvick still keeps staying down there. He's got 2 straight 4th place finishes, and he's what, 28-1?
Yeah, that's I don't understand. He's 7-1 to win the race, which means that he'd definitely be in the playoffs. And we all know his history at these types of tracks in the playoffs, and yet he's 28-1.
And Phoenix is the cut race. So this track is comparative to Phoenix. He should have won Phoenix in the spring. He's got 2 straight 4th place finishes.
Isn't he getting into the playoffs right now, no matter what?
Pretty much. I mean, he's plus 130. Oh, I got it right here in front of me. He's 163 points above the cut line.
Yeah. So
and we've got 5 races left. So let's say one of the 11 that I've already won that are playoff eligible win on Sunday. Then you have 1 guaranteed wild card spot at that point. Because even if you get 4 more winners for the 4 races left, that still leaves it. And he's far enough ahead that he's pretty much in. Which I also think says a lot to how well he's doing when you look at his teammates sitting 25th, 27th, and 31st in points. And this guy, it's a big loss for Stewart Haas. I know we've talked about that in the past. He's 12th in points right now as far as the playoff standings. I think he's top 10 in points overall. But in terms of the playoff standings, yeah, he's 8th in points overall. He's a top driver. He's going to get in, unless it's going to take a miracle to get him out. And we just talked about the tracks. This dude could go all the way to Championship 4 with an organization that doesn't have any other driver in the top 24 in points.
If you haven't taken anybody yet today, he's like at the top of the list. He's the guy that if you're in Vegas, I put money on Harvick right now. And I'll come back and tell you who else I want later. But I'm putting money on Harvick today.
Well, like we said, he would be definitely for sure. And as we keep mentioning, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you get to Phoenix. They're all separate instances. Just keep marching on. Phoenix is the race. It doesn't matter anything past that point. You get to Phoenix. We've seen it over and over. The Championship 4 probably going to run 1, 2, 3, 4. Harvick is the best driver in the Cup Series right now at Phoenix. He's got 20 straight top 10 finishes there. 20. and you're getting
what was he, 28-1. No, wait.
4th. And he should. No, I think it was 4th. Yeah, no, he's 5th. He was 5th.
This year. Okay.
But he should have won. Remember, Harrison Burton spun while he was leading with 10 to go?
That's right.
And it brought everybody down pit road. So he was
on
one of those pace races, to win that.
Yes, I remember that terrible start to the season handicapping, and that was part of it.
Richmond, this track's similar to Phoenix. Loudon's similar to Phoenix.
Look, we only got 4 months before you get your payback. So it's a perfect time. And if you want to do it, do not wait. Because he could win on Sunday, and then the odds are just done. Then he's down to like 10-1.
That's what I'm gonna say. It's at least chopped in half.
Yeah, minimum. Yes,
minimum. Because we just said this track is comparable to Phoenix. If he wins this, he's got to be one of the.
I think it's a really good investment because it's his last year.
Yep, walk off Phoenix championship.
You think if he's in that Final Four, what do you think? I mean, you're going to have like 90% of the drivers in that race are going to be rooting for him, more than likely.
Oh, yeah.
And getting out of his way and helping him. And, so.
I mean, it's not a dream Final Four of NASCAR for them. They're probably hoping Harvick, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, and Kyle Busch. Yeah. That would be their dream Final Four. Talk about storylines for that one.
You get Kyle Busch.
Chase Elliott's got to get there.
Kyle Busch, Elliott, Harvick, and I don't know who would be
probably Larson because he's popular.
Is he really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Why is Larson so popular?
He brings a huge dirt following, dirt fan base. Okay. I was just telling somebody earlier this. Forget who. I was talking to a driver, an IndyCar driver, because Larson's going to run the Indy 500 next year. And they were calling him like dirt track Jesus is what because I mean, this dude is the Dale Earnhardt of dirt tracks. They love him. He shows up out you see people in his gear. Like he is loved. Like he brings the needle or turns the needle for him. So,
okay, good for him. All right. So I tell you what, let's do some, let's take a look at some of our viewer comments and from last week. Alan Bat, always great to see great to see you and hear you. Well, that's awfully nice out of Alan.
It is. Alan, you know what? I need to follow you back on I don't get on Instagram much, as you probably have noticed. I do sometimes. I saw you follow me on there. I'm glad you just said that because I need to give you a follow back.
There you
I'll
go.
find it here. There you go.
Is Alan
Just
on
followed you
Discord?
back. I can't remember.
I'm looking now. I don't see him. Nope. No, he's not on Discord. And if you're not on Discord yet from our motorsports community, what are you waiting for? Get on Discord.
Yep. We
All
respond
right.
pretty quick. So yeah, it's your avenue right to us directly.
John DeRosa, New Hampshire was a great race if you bet on Truex. Other than that, not very exciting. Because of course we had a very we were pretty adamant about how the race was last week compared to how a certain demographic of fans actually liked it. John also added great content, definitely helped with making my bets. And Paul Moss, at least one nut watching you at midnight. Thanks and good luck. And of course, Paul is referencing the fact that I schedule the race day repost for 12 midnight on race day. So Paul you must be a West Coast, Paul, because I don't know, 12 midnight on a Saturday night on YouTube. I don't know what
your
that's
dedication.
About. It sure is.
Yeah.
But 9 o'clock, a little bit more believable. But I guess Paul will fill us in with that. Okay. Is Paul on Discord?
I think he is. Is he not? I thought he was.
No, I don't see Paul on Discord either. What's up,
Or maybe
Paul?
he's not.
Unless I just don't see him here, because it is possible. I don't know if I can see all the guys that are in here now. I don't know. I haven't looked at it yet. I don't know. Anyway, if you guys are on and I'm telling you you're not, let me know. Okay, so let's now... By the way, you're back in the lead in a fantasy team.
They're finally kicking it back into gear. This is what they started off this way, and then
it's going to be that
they
kind
went
of
away.
year. This is what you want. It's back and forth, and that's because Denny Hamlin got the win for you. Just your 4th win of the year. CJ's got 10 wins, and he is 50 points back of you. That just shows you how it hurt him to have Elliott out for a while. And as we've said over and over again, that bottom half of his team just hasn't really done much for him. So that's kind of why that's been an issue for him. But yep, so back in the lead. That's 2 weeks in a row. So now Eric's trying to go on a win streak.
I'm debating now. Did you pick Jones back up?
Nope.
I'd say I was debating Suarez and Jones, but I didn't know if any of you guys.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, you can do it. Nobody's done it yet. So if you wanted to do that, you can. Who's available now? The best guys are available. Jones and Briscoe hasn't done anything since his team came together, but we're still. I think this week's going to tell us a lot.
It will.
We both have Briscoe this week, and for me, it's like this is it. I'm not going to put any more money, even though I don't put a buck on him. It's like I have to see him do something this week, or else no more putting even a buck on him.
No, I think. When you got Busher and McDowell, that really helped because those guys have right now 2 playoff drivers, and Suarez, I just don't like where he's going. But you also got 2 road courses in August. That kind of scares me is dropping him, and he wins one of those 2.
Suarez, he does look like he's in a rut. See,
he does.
with
Jones
Cindric,
on fire.
I can keep Cindric because we got a road course. What do we have? 1
2
more?
road courses, 2 in Daytona.
Yeah. So there's still room for that. So that's why there's no reason for me to. But yeah, we talked about it because Jones is now. What is he on? He's on the best stretch of his season, right?
8th, 16th, 11th, 11th, 9th. Yeah.
So that's his best stretch.
And he even mentioned last week, I saw a quote. He doesn't feel like he's got race-winning pace. Granted, he doesn't. That team's not going to off pace right now. However, for a fantasy team, 8th, 11th, 11th, 9th, I'll take that all day. It's better than what I'm getting out of Suarez.
That's true. That's a 5-race stretch. That's clearly, easily his best stretch of the season.
And are we going to throw a week in a couple of weeks? Is Shane Van Gisbergen going to be on our free? He's back. He's going to run the Indy road course. He's running the Indy road course. I think drivers are all saying he could be a favorite again. So are we going to look
Yeah, something tells me that the drivers aren't going to allow that to happen again.
No, I agree.
They know who he is now.
Oh yeah.
They don't want to be embarrassed again. So
no, especially a late race restart.
They're going to
If
be
I'm
like,
running
"Hey,
fifth,
man, this is the Cup Series. This is a
Yeah.
big Cup car, and we're going to make sure that we know how to handle it." So
yes, I know Justin Haley didn't handle you at Chicago, but turn one at Indy, we're shooting you off into the runoff area. But yeah, he's coming back. But yeah, there's other than that, there's not really. I guess Harrison Burton's starting to pick it back up again.
Is he?
He was 8th last week. Indy, he was 3rd last year.
Show it again.
The Wood brothers, he's starting to come around.
Show it again. Haley had that 2-race deal, and then that's it for him. Yeah, it's really out of all the only guys we have left on the waiver wire. It's right now it's Jones.
Yeah,
it's either you take Jones or you wait another week.
You know what? You know what? This isn't his week. He's not good at Richmond.
No, he's not.
In the Cup Series. So, yeah, I might as well wait another week.
Yeah. And then
you never know.
Maybe next week, then I'll take him.
There you go.
Nah, I have no idea. I'm not taking him.
Well, in Michigan, they're not going to have speed per se. But, I mean, when I look at Suarez, he's finished really 22nd, 12th, 27th, 2nd, 16th, 36th. But then you go to Jones, who's 16th, 11th. 24th, 6th. No, I'm sorry, that's Keselowski. 8th, 16th, 11th, 11th, 9th. He's out finishing him, so those are points that you could use.
Let's see. I'm going to go over to. Let me pick up the thing. So this is Race Review Online. So we have the. Let's see. So where is the? There's the fantasy team. Okay, so this is the fantasy team here. So there's, by the way, there's the driver standing. So CJ's got the top 3 guys.
Yeah.
Top 3 drivers. Look at that. That just shows you the craziness of his team this year. He's done in first place, and he has the top 3 drivers. And look, you're in first place, and you don't have one of the top 5 drivers.
No. They look 6, 7, 9, 10. 4 right there.
Yeah, 4 of the last 5, though. Top, and that's in the top 10. And there are the standings. So there you go. There's the team. And there's you've already made 2 pickups so far. CJ hasn't made. Yeah, he usually doesn't, but he did this year. He made these pickups because he had to chase Elliott.
When Elliott was out, yeah,
it was forced upon him. And then my usual. I had Eric Jones at one time.
Yep, and Briscoe
just recently. Just didn't work out.
No.
And there you go. So Eric's on a 2-race win streak right there. So yeah, we'll see how it all goes. But it's been a lot of fun, and we still have the whole playoff season to go. And I think now we will start. Well, again, if you're looking at the playoff standings, what is the situation from? Like we talked about Harvick, so he's going to get in, and then what are we looking at after that? Who else looks like they're going to have to fight to get in?
Well, depending on winners.
Let's say there's 2 more winners. Just let's say 2 new winners.
Then you're probably good with Harvick, Keselowski, Buescher. They're all 3 100 points to the good.
That makes sense. Harvick, Keselowski, Buescher. Okay.
They're not sweating it. They're only fear because, like, you look at Buescher, he's 111 points above the cut line. Below him is Bubba Wallace, and he's 27. So that's a huge gap between those 2. But the thing that Buescher would just be concerned about is, let's just say Chase Elliott wins at 1 point in this next grouping.
And McDowell.
And then McDowell. Then he's down in the bubble. Just like that. So that's where those guys are concerned. So really, Harvick doesn't matter because he's the top of them, and he's going to be hard to be caught. Keselowski, Buescher, even Bubba Wallace and McDowell, they're rooting for drivers who have already won to just win again. That's where they are at this point is, hey, if we can't win, let's let somebody else that's already won win so they're not taking a playoff spot away from us. So they're looking pretty good in that standpoint.
So Wallace is the one that really has work to do.
Yeah, with being – he's 27 of the good. He just needs to accumulate stage points.
So he's but he's in trouble if there's 2 new winners.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. McDowell, oddly enough, he's good enough to be in right now. Him and Cindric are going to be good at the same tracks coming up. Indy, Watkins Glen, and Daytona. Allmendinger, he's really good on the Indy road course. He's won it before.
Yeah.
His only 2 wins have come on Indy and Watkins Glen, and they're back-to-back weeks. So, there's still Suarez. His only win came on a road course. You always got to throw in Bowman and Elliott because they drive for Hendrick. They should win. Granted, they don't look like they're going to win at this point, but they also drive for Hendrick. I would say probably everybody below them, pretty much no shot from 23rd on down. They're going to have to win Daytona. I don't see any. Granted, we picked them. We'll go over the picks in a little bit. Maybe Briscoe or Priest can steal something this weekend, but that's probably their last chance outside of Daytona to do anything.
Well, that's why it's kind of fun to have Daytona as the last race because anything can happen. You don't want to be in a situation where a new winner can knock you out. So,
because that's why it's there. Exactly. Because right now, if Daytona wasn't there and it was the old, like when it was either Richmond or Indy, that's pretty much it then at that point. Because we're those guys, Cindric on down, there's no sense to even talk about them because they're too far back. They're not pointing their way in and they're not winning those races. So now, just knowing that Daytona's sitting there, they've got a shot. Everybody's got a shot at Daytona, so you never know. So it just keeps everybody still in conversation for all 26 weeks.
Okay, so now we take a look at this week at Richmond and flat track. So we're going to use Phoenix and New Hampshire as the most similar. Larson, he won earlier this year. He started 9th. The last pole sitter to win at Richmond was Denny Hamlin back in 2016. And there has only been one winner from the top 2 rows in the last 10. So believe it or not, even a short track like Richmond, qualifying the top 2 rows doesn't mean all that much.
No, the drivers have spoken that over the years, and because Richmond, about a decade, I forget how long ago it's been since it's been repaved. It's been repaved in the last few decades. It was all about grip. Now it's become a really aged track, or it's slippery. So attacking the track for qualifying will get you a good starting spot, but it's an impound race, so you can't touch your car after you qualify. You want to have a car based off of long run. If you attack this track, your tires are going to fall off and you're going to go backwards. So it's a weird track where it's kind of like a short track Darlington, to where the faster you go, the slower you're going to end up. It's going to burn your tires off. So that's why typically now, since it's an impound race and you're not practicing after qualifying, you can't make adjustments, that the guys that are qualifying good have a good qualifying short run speed. But this race, you got to have long run speed. So that's why the cars that start back, they can come through easily because they know how to take care of the tires, which really makes this a veteran race. I mean, you look at the winners here, Harvick, Truex, Hamlin, even Larson's won. Granted, he's been doing it forever, so he's not old by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not young. He's like these young guys. So you got to learn how to take care of your stuff there.
Not a good long shot race.
Not at all. Not at all.
So, yeah.
And if you want to look at the teams, I've also got this. Out of the last 15 races, Gibbs, Penske, Hendrick, and Stewart-Haas have won 14 of them there, including 10 in a row. So the big teams win. The bigger name drivers win. That's why you look at the odds. There's just – you got to go favorite heavy and find a few sleepers long, because the guys in the middle, there's a reason they're in the middle in this track. And typically this track does not reward those type of drivers.
Yeah, it's probably one of the – it's not one of the better races to try to make money off of.
No.
Because you might say, well, yeah, but then I can zero in on someone who's really good. The problem is there's like 5 really good drivers here. So.
Yep. And we're going to give you some options, some prop bets and some matchups and stuff to supplement some of that money. So stay tuned as we go on this show. We're going to give you some other options that because like you said, I mean, 7-1 and up, those are probably, your winner is probably between the 4-1 and 7-1 grouping. That's
probably.
You just can't pick them all and win much money out of it.
No.
Where we at least could give you some props to at least bet elsewhere too. You might hit the winner. You might only win $20 on the winner, but you might hit some props and triple your money that route.
That'll
So
work.
This is that type of race, I feel.
Just so you know, the last 10 race winners, the average starting position is 12.7. And that includes Bowman winning in 21 from the 24th position, and both drivers last year, Hamlin and Harvick, winning from the 13th positions. And it's not a race that you really go, all right, we're going to exclude Ford, we're going to go with Chevy. Any model can win this race. And it showed you the same thing. If you look at the results at Phoenix and New Hampshire this year, it was like Ford, Toyota, Chevy, Ford. So it just doesn't matter. This is one of those races you do not put that into play.
No, Ford, if you want to exclude some of Ford, they don't have speed on these types of tracks. So they're not going to come out and lead a lot of laps. I've looked at out of the 317 laps in Phoenix, they only led 37 of them. Out of the 400 laps here in the spring, they led 1 lap. 8 of 400 in Dover and 16 of 301 in Loudon. So it's not like they're going to come out and lead a bunch of laps. So Chevy and Toyota, it's why they got betting odds are for them. But I also want to put it past Kevin Harvick's a Ford.
Yeah, I think you look at Harvick and Logano, and those are your 2 Fords, really, that you can't – you have to be wary of this week. But
that's why the Ford camp, you can't fully punt on them. Yeah, they don't lead a lot of laps this year, but you also have Harvick in the Ford group, and I do feel Harvick can win this race. He did last year, so that's something definitely you don't want to fully punt away from them.
All right, so as far as our picks, how many do you think we all picked together? Same.
I didn't do too many picks. Probably 2.
No, you didn't. You only had 6 picks.
Yeah, there just wasn't a lot of money there for him. 2 picks together?
1. And let me see here. You and I have 3 out of 6. But just 1 between the 3 of us.
Harvick?
No. CJ did not take Harvick.
No, he probably didn't like him at 7-1, which I didn't, but He's too good there not to. Then Larson?
Yes. Larson is the only driver we all picked and agreed with. So we're going to show you those props in a little bit, so stay tuned. So let's go through, and so really, you got the top 3, Truex, Larson, and Hamlin. Now, you went with all 3, and at least you upped your money a little bit, because here's the deal. We still have 14 races left?
15, counting this one.
All right, 15 races. So you can get hot. You do have time. I mean, here's the funny thing. Again, we've talked about this before. Let me just, again, you can see this over. Actually, I don't know why I'm doing it there. Where is it? I'm going to go back to race review and show you the picks. So let's see. Where did we have our picks? They're here.
It's up.
Oh, it's up.
Oh, you're doing our picks for
from last week.
Yeah.
So I can update. Yeah, I just want to show something from last week. I know we haven't.
Go to the top.
Here
you can go to the top. Oh, right there too. Yeah.
All right. So now again, this was last week, but I just want to show you something. So I have 9 wins. Now I'm minus 139. Eric, after a win, has 9 wins. Now keep in mind he won, and he only made, what'd you make? Like $30, something like that.
Yeah, one huge.
So he's like around 960 or something like that. So, but there you go. Look at that. You and I have both had 9 wins this year.
It's a $900 difference.
It's a $900 difference, and that's based just on strategy. And again, there's it now. Like we said last week, and it happened again with another favorite one. Maybe we're about to enter a streak of 7 straight races where the favorites win. If that happens, I'm probably going to get screwed and go back to where I was before. But at some point, you are going to have to make the decision of staying away from the favorites, or just going heavy on the favorites, like real heavy.
I almost did this one. I almost went all in on the top 2, but I'm like, you can make such a strong case for. It's just one of those. There's not a big grouping that could win this race, but the grouping that is, there's not a.
Well, who would you do it?
Favorite.
Who would you have gone all in on?
Probably Truex.
And
he just, I probably actually would have done Truex and Harvick.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I just don't trust the Larson-Hamlin thing after last week. Hendrick hasn't necessarily been their best at this track. Yes, they've won recently, but Hamlin, he's done it. He's gone back-to-back a couple times, but is he really going to go back at that?
I'm going to have a hard time thinking that there's not going to be something.
Yep.
Especially if he does happen to have the best car. And there's going to be a few drivers out there that are going to say, all right, really? You got the best car today? Okay, we'll see about that.
Yep.
We'll see how you finish.
This could be the payback. And Bell's another one that I almost he hasn't had a top 5 since Bristol is what scared me. But you look at him on this track, he's made 11 starts and he has a top 6 and 9 of them, which we'll get to my props in a little bit because that might be a teaser for something. But
5.7 average in 6 races. That's very impressive. That's why I had to put money on him just to make my money back, which was my strategy with Larson. That's all I did was I tried to make my money back with Larson and Bell. But it is hard. That's the thing with Bell. It's like, he's getting closer. He finished 6th. It's like you can see that getting closer. So, but you don't know. Maybe they will all put it together this week.
And that's the thing with it. It's all about, it's a team sport, right? We hear about you focus on the driver, but they're not executing. They've got speed. They're just not executing that speed. And that's the difference with him right now. It's not like he's had slow cars. They just haven't been executing over these last couple months. But you kind of can see him coming out of it a little bit. And then this is a perfect track for him to make that statement back. I mean, he's just so good there, and Toyotas are good there. And it just would make sense. So it's hard to negate him, but it's also the guy hasn't had a top 5 since he won Bristol Dirt. That's the offset. It's like, is he just going to jump in and win, or does he need another top 5 and then you start taking him seriously? So I was shocked he was 7-1, even though those odds, but where he's at. I think he would have been, if he was more 9-1, 10-1, I think he'd get more bets, but 7-1 is just tough right now for a guy that he hasn't had a top 5. They're not selling him very well.
I can't imagine he has other tracks coming up that are that much better than what he's had the last few races. I mean,
Michigan might be okay with him. The road courses, he's been all right. Yeah, Daytona, oddly enough, I think he's got like the second most points scored on super speedways this year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He has been finishing with it. No, I'm sorry, he's 4th, 124 points.
But again, when you've only raced somewhere 6 times, you have 4 top 5s and 5 top 10s with an average of 5.7. That's just he doesn't have much better than that. So if you don't see a top 5 this week, then yeah, I agree. I probably will just stay away until he wins.
Yep. And my thing with him, I'm going to wait till after qualifying because usually those odds are going to come down anyways, even though in the trend.
Because that's what we want. We want to wait.
This is where he's qualified in his Cup day. I'm going to exclude 2020 because they didn't qualify as a COVID year. 8th, 10th, 9th, so not even the top 5. And then his last 2, 21st and 21st.
Really?
So he doesn't qualify good there. So you might get better.
You're talking about Richmond.
Yeah. So we might get better odds for him that if he doesn't start well, that they're going to think, oh, well, let's bring him down to 10-1 or 11-1. But no, that's right where we want him to be. But on the season, he's got 4 top 5 starting spots in his last 6. But Richmond, he's just not attacked. Plus, like I said, you can't attack this track.
Sure.
You've got to, and that's not just him. Toyota, Denny Hamlin qualified 11th in the spring race. Martin Truex Jr. Well, wait a minute. How do you qualify? It's got him and Truex Jr. each. Oh, I'm sorry. He was 12th. Truex was 12th. Hamlin was 11th. So they both were outside the top 10. Bell was outside the top 10. So that shows maybe and Ty Gibbs was 14th. So they're all right there together.
I think you got to wait definitely this week in qualifying. No way. If you like any of these favorites, only if you like the favorites, you wait.
Yeah.
Even Harvick especially. Because I can easily – it seems like anytime Harvick his odds begin the week at like 7-1. Anytime I look at his odds on race day, it's like at least 10-1 or 11. They always go the opposite way. It's just
They do.
he never goes any. The best you're going to get this week out of Harvick is 7-1 unless he polls. That's it.
Yep.
I mean, I just can't imagine because he's hardly ever 7-1 to begin with. I mean, that's the only thing I was a little bit concerned with were the odds, which is why I put a lot of money on him this week. It was like, all right, if I'm gonna trust Harvick, then I got to go almost all in on it in a way. So I put $35 on him this week. So I just figured
smart play.
Yeah,
and he wasn't one of my prop picks, but this is one of at 7-1 for those out there. You want to bet on if you think he's going to win, you definitely think he'll get a top 3. He's plus 200 for a top 3. So you're getting almost Truex Jr. odds for a top 3 finish for him. Runner-up 5th, his last 2 spring races there, 1 last summer, 9 top 8s his last 10. Like I said, he's 20 top 10s in a row at Phoenix, which is a similar track. 2 straight 4th place finishes. Loudon you could kind of compare because of the 1 mile package. He was just 4th there. He's plus 110 for a top 5 and plus 200 for a top 3. So you might as well dabble into that a little bit because I feel like a top 5 is almost for certain, and you're getting plus 110 for that. That's almost, as you said, it's a 5. He's averaging a 5th place finish.
Yep.
You might as well snag a top 5 out of him for that average. So to me, it's almost free money at plus 110.
You know, trying to figure out the difference between Truex and Larson and Hamlin. So you have Truex has been 11th or better in 9 straight, 7 of those top 5s, runner-up, 3 wins, swept 2019. Now this year has been a little weird for him because he got the dominating win in New Hampshire, 11th here this year, and 17th he did nothing at Phoenix. So really good, pretty bad, even. So he's all over the.
Well, remember the spring race though, he was leading and he was passing Byron to win in the end. And remember, he was out of tires. He was leading. He was going to win. This was the tire. He took his set in stage 1 that he didn't need.
Yeah.
And they were out of tires. Tires are a big deal.
That never happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So if he had tires, he was going to win that day. So that's why I look at he has a good car on short tracks.
But the problem is he was 11-1 in the spring.
Yeah.
And now he's 4-1.
That's the one that concerns me a little. They really dropped him.
4-1. That's getting really low. That's especially when you have 4 other drivers right behind him that all are just as good.
That's where it was tough. With him. He, to me, right now looks like the championship favorite. 6 top 5s his last 8. So this track running like Phoenix, I'm curious what he's going to look like. So that's why I was like, you know what? He's a championship favorite. This track could compare. Let's go all in. However, it's going to be really hot there. I saw like mid-90s. So we'll see. We'll see if that's a little bit hotter than what you're going to get in Phoenix in November. So we'll see what happens.
And then Larson, he has 4 top 5s, a couple of wins. His average finish is 10th, 10.8. But what I like about Larson is he won this race earlier this year, 4th at Phoenix, 3rd at New Hampshire. And he dominated Phoenix, led almost half the laps, or exactly half the laps, just about. So he's like the driver out of this top group that is pretty much had the most consistency or the best average among the 3 races. And
remember, it's not a comparable, but it's still a short track package. He won Martinsville too.
Okay.
And he never does good at Martinsville. So he is the rated, according to NASCAR and their ratings, the 2nd best short track driver right now.
Okay.
As far as points accumulated. So Bell's 1, he's 2. So
and then
it's worth noting.
Finished 20th this year. 17 top 5s and 4 wins. He's led over 2,200 laps. That's an average of 66 a race over 33. But if you look at it, 20th here, 23rd Phoenix, 7th New Hampshire. That's not all that great coming off a win. That's
and 6 and his spring too was he had those speeding penalty, and then he had 2 speeding penalties. I think he had 2 pit road problems. He was leading. He led a lot. I think it was 71 laps. He won the 2nd stage. Then he had a speeding penalty on his pit stop. So pit road is what kept them from winning. Because honestly, I think, yes, Larson won the race, but Hamlin and Truex probably had the two best cars that day.
By the way, would J.J. Yaley be another one that may want some payback?
That would be the one. Remember that? This was that race.
So there you go. You got another
he
driver he may have to worry about. Okay. And then you've got the next group. You got Kyle Busch at 8, Byron 9, Logano 12. And in that group, CJ took Byron, but that's it. We kind of laid off these guys. Here's the problem with Kyle. 8th at Phoenix, 14th here, accident New Hampshire. No top fives last 6. Only 46 lead laps in his last 6 at Richmond, and only 2 lead laps his last 3. That all says pass at 8-1 with all those first 5 drivers we just mentioned that are all good. He's not anywhere near that kind of good at this track and this season to be in that group. Byron, I can understand why CJ went with Byron. He would have been much better than 24th this year. He had that, Christopher Bell spun him out late in the race. He led 117 laps. He also led 122 laps in the April race last year and finished 3rd, which is the best finish he's ever had there. And he won Phoenix. So I can understand that. But let's also consider this. This is important. As hot as Truex is, Byron was 4-1 earlier this year, 9-1 now. So opposite of Truex in a good way. But the bad thing is opposite of Truex, because he has 1 top 5 in his last 7. That was the win he stole in Atlanta. So if he doesn't steal the weather race in Atlanta, he's 0 for top 5s in his last 7 races.
Yeah, and here out of 12 starts, combining the Xfinity, he's had 2 Xfinity starts there too. But you combine them all, he's got 1 top 5 and 12 tries at Richmond. So I just don't like. Yeah, 9-1 was. I feel like him and Kyle Busch.
It's a couple
they should be probably 12-1. Yeah,
I can take Bell and Harvick.
And the only reason he led the laps that he did this past spring or the 2 springs ago was because the Toyota guys, they went different strategy plays. So he kind of did a strategy game by leading laps, but he didn't have the best car. The Toyotas did. And then this past spring, he did have a good car, but he wasn't. I don't think he had a race winning one. Yes, he was leading towards the end, but remember Truex passed him. And then that pit stop came, and then Bella got it. He didn't have a car capable, I think, at outright speed, he wasn't going to beat him. And now you look at the season, he hasn't had the outright speed because Atlanta's not a speed track. That's a drafting track.
Yeah.
So he just seems to be going backwards. Kyle Busch, I have no idea why they have him at 8-1. He's even admitted short tracks are the worst tracks. So him being a favorite or one of the favorites just boggled my mind. Plus, he's got 1 top 5 finish at his last 9 Richmond starts too. So both of them fade. Logano was one that was interesting. Originally, I faded him, and I thought, Ford, Logano, I'd rather go Harvick over that camp. But I really looked closer. He's a better play. One of my plays is a top 150 plus 150 for a top 5. He was 17th and 6th last year, so 6th in this race, 7th in the spring, which that's why I'm going more towards the top 5 than a win. He has 5 top 7 finishes in his last 6 Richmond tries, 9 in his last 12, and he was runner-up in Loudon and at Martinsville. So plus 1,200 to me, I don't think he's going to win, but plus 150 for a top 5, go all in on that one. I'm all in for about a top 5 because he seems to be hovering around that top 5 more and more. Plus, this track is like Phoenix, and he won Phoenix last fall. I feel like they're getting closer. So I do like him out of that group. Not necessarily for a win, but I like him for a top 5.
The odds are better. And by the way, when he was 6th in the race last year, he led 222 laps.
There you go.
Elliott, now, you did not take him, but I did because I'm like, all right, finally, I've got some good odds on Chase Elliott that I can go with. And I'm just going to go. Now, look, this has not been a great track for him. It's been okay. He's got top 5s and all that, but he has never led over 100 laps in 14 races, which is not all that great for a short track. But I do like the fact of what we saw out of when he didn't have when he was off this year. We get Josh Berry in the car. And all of a sudden, we have a great finish. We have Josh Berry, of all drivers, finishing second in the same car. So that means something to me when you put Chase Elliott in there now.
Yeah, and Barry had that pit call at the end, too, for him to get that track position. But, again, he had to hold those guys off, get the second. But I don't know how much farther down he's going to be at plus 1,600, but he's also not a good qualifier there. So, I mean, yes, on the off chance he does start well, those drop, you may not want to wait. But I also look at 12th, 3rd, 13th, 15th, 23rd are his qualifying chances at Richmond. That's where he's qualified. So he's got 3 top 5s his last 5. So you're not getting bad odds for plus 16 to 1.
You're talking about qualifying?
I'm talking about qualifying strictly at Richmond. Yep.
Yeah. I'm not sure then I'd risk it.
That's because you're risking if he qualifies good, he might drop from plus 1,600. But
because then I would want him.
No,
the only
you
reason
wouldn't
I'm
at
taking
all.
it is because he's 16 to 1. That's it.
And you could get him right now too. I didn't have him on my top 5 prop picks, but he's plus 220 for a top 5, and he's got 3 top 5 finishes his last 5 at Richmond. And that car, as you said, was top 5 in the spring. So technically, that car has 4 top 5s in its last 6.
Okay.
And he's plus 220 in that range. So that's not a bad play to go plus 220. Which what we mean by that is you throw $1, you went to $2.20. So you put $10 in it. You get an extra $12 and you can hedge it to something else. But yeah, it's not a bad play for a top 5. Plus, he has to win. He's running out of chances. So plus 1,600 for the driver of a caliber of Chase Elliott, it's not a bad play.
And then we start getting to long shots. So Chastain, I put a little bit of money on Chastain and Blaney, 2022. Chastain was 3rd in this race early in April and led 80 laps in last year's race. Didn't fare well at Phoenix, New Hampshire, so that's a little bit of an issue, but I am getting 20 to 1. And the same thing with Blaney at 22 to 1. 2nd at Phoenix. We know that he could have had the second best car at New Hampshire if it wasn't for that bad pit stop penalty. And yeah, he didn't race all that well here this year, but he has been 11th or better in 4 of his last 5. And he led 128 laps from the pole in the April race last year and finished 7th. And again, we've said it. Blaney has seemed to, he's doing better at tracks that he does not have great history at this season. He hasn't won one of those races. Well, he did win the Coke 600, so I shouldn't say he hasn't because he did. He did really well there. But he's been in a lot of positions where he's exceeded expectations, and then all of a sudden something will happen. Some fluky thing will happen. But again, you're getting 22 to 1. So, and I also put a few bucks on Reddick at 28 to 1, even though he's never had a top 10 and never led a lap at Richmond. He got spun out by Harvick, I believe, earlier this year. And that was the reason he didn't finish in the top 10. He was 3rd at Phoenix and 6th at New Hampshire. And if we look at Reddick right now, overall, he came pretty close, of course, as we talked about at the beginning of the show last week. He's sure trending in the right possible way, isn't he? If you take a look at his last 7 races, he can't go anywhere else but first.
Yeah, that's all that's left for him.
Yes.
That would be the type of season. He's done nothing, and we've seen this in his next gen. The guys have done nothing at a track, and they come out and win. And yeah, you look at that: 35, 35th, 33rd, 30th, 28th, 27th, 6th, 2nd. Yeah, the only way now is either win or you're going back.
35th or
he's just not. Yeah, he's just not had a good past history there. But as you said, he's been good on light tracks, and he's heated up on the season. Him and Bubba, this is an interesting race weekend for 23XI in general because Bubba Wallace is the same way. He's starting to find his finishes again, but he's just not been good there. He's just not been good there at all.
No.
So they're an interesting case. And Blaney, he needs to get – he's kind of like Bell. They just got to execute better. He's had speed, and we thought then when we talked about this, when he won the 600, I'm like, look at him now. Now here comes Blaney. He was leading the points. He had 3 top 5s in 5 races, and here he comes, and now he hasn't had a top 5 since. And this is what his team does, what Byron has done over years. They get a couple wins, and then off they go the wrong direction. So I feel like Blaney's just got to turn this around.
He's got time. So, but they just can't have those mistakes because it's a team effort, and I don't know if they've got a championship team. And then as far as the remaining long shots, CJ put a few bucks on Gibbs, 9th earlier this year. By the way, he was 80-1 in this race earlier this year. He's now 28-1. And then my only other long shots were Bowman and Briscoe. As I mentioned, I put a buck on Briscoe. Bowman was 18-1 earlier this year. He's now 45-1. So that's he won the race in 21. He's kind of stole it late, but 8th from the pole this year. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. 9th at Phoenix, 14th in Hampshire. He's okay, but we know another driver that has to win, and he's 45-1 in a Hendrick car. So I think this is one of those races where I can risk it. Not a whole lot, a few bucks. And then, Briscoe has fared well on these tracks, these setups this year. I'm assuming that's the way you're going with him as well. And then you also decided to go with Priest.
Yeah, I thought with Briscoe, if you're going to go one Stewart-Haas for 100-1, you might as well go the other. Remember, Priest won the pole at Martinsville. He was 12th at Phoenix, so I think he could qualify well. The Stewart-Haas guys seem to be on short tracks. And Briscoe actually has the 3rd most points scored on these types of short tracks this season.
Okay.
3. So I like that for 100-1. 5th in Martinsville, 10th at Loudon. That's his best finish in a long time. That just came recently. He scored 114 points on short tracks, which I said ranks 3rd. Granted, they count Bristol Dirt in it, but I do like that for 100-1. Plus, I look at Gibbs and Briscoe. These are some of my props. Briscoe was plus 800 for a top 5. So you're getting basically Kyle Busch to win odds for Chase Briscoe just to finish in the top 5. And he was, like I said, 5th at Martinsville, 7th at Phoenix. He had a top 5 at Phoenix last fall for the championship race. 12th at Richmond here in the spring, coming off of a top 10 a couple weeks ago. He's got the 3rd most points accumulated on short tracks, and it's plus 800 for a top 5. That's definitely a no-brainer. And Gibbs, I agree with CJ. I didn't like Gibbs necessarily at 28-1, but I do like plus 700 for a top 3 and plus 350 for a top 5 because he's coming off of a top 5 finish. He won an Xfinity Series race there, so those are definitely good odds to go their direction. And I also like on DraftKings, we got these odds too. You can do matchup picks, and you can parlay matchup winners, just like a stick and ball sports game. Like, I know my Cubs are playing the White Sox tonight.
Okay.
Bet on the Cubs. You can parlay them. So if you want to so you have matchup of Brian Blaney's plus 110, Joey Logano minus 145. We already just talked about the Logano stats. He's around the top 5, top 7. As long as he beats Blaney to the checkered flag, you win that matchup, which he has more times than not at Richmond. Keselowski's minus 110, Reddick's minus 120. We just talked about Reddick. But if he takes a step back, Keselowski, he hasn't been terrible. I just had Keselowski stats somewhere around here. Past the winter, 10th of the spring, 8th at Dover, 2 top 6s his last 3 weeks on the season. So you get Keselowski at 110, and then Bubba, who we just talked about, is plus 100 versus Ty Gibbs minus 135. So you just take the favorites. You just go Logano, Keselowski, Gibbs, and you parlay it. You get plus 461 odds just to parlay those 3 matchups. You throw $50 on that, you're making $280 just on those 3. You can even throw $20 on it and make 112. So your odds this week may be better served to do matchup picks and then also pick some of those favorites, knowing that I might not win much on these favorites, but I could win some of these matchups and really take that money and roll it into next week. But just 3 matchups right there and those are 3 favorable ones that I think we could agree Logano should beat Blaney to the finish line. I'm not saying Blaney can't get a top 10, but we just talked about Logano, and it's all about just reaching the finish line before the other. Doesn't matter what else happens. You just got to beat that driver head-to-head and just make it to the finish line before him. Keselowski, see what he can do, and then Gibbs beat Wallace.
How about taking Elliott over Kyle Busch?
That's another one. You could take
Elliott's
a look at.
plus 100.
Yeah, I'll even up even more. Yeah, let me I got this right here. So, they even have qualifying odds now. This just popped up. This wasn't on here. I'm sorry. The reason they got qualifying odds is I'm on Formula One.
What was that?
I was on Formula. I was like qualifying odds. I was on Formula One. Yeah. So if you go Elliott, where'd they go? Keselowski, Gibbs, and Logano. There's the parlay. $10 will win you 112. 50 will win you 561 just on those 4.
Yeah. Yeah, I would probably, I mean, that would be, the one that sticks out the most for me would probably be Elliott, to tell you the truth.
And is that screen up where everybody can see it?
Yeah.
So if you just click on a couple of, it'll put the.
Click on a driver or both of the.
No, just click on Logano there.
Oh.
Just click on him. And then click on Keselowski, 2 down. And then click on Elliott, 2 down from there. And then where that screen is the bet slip, if you scroll down, and there's the parlay. See, it's plus 545. And you can play around with it. Then you can see what
$10, you make 64.
Yep. And then scroll down to the other one that I mentioned.
Should be 54, shouldn't it? Yeah, 54.
That'd be the payout would be, yeah.
What are we saying?
And then scroll to one more down on the below Elliott. There it is, the Ty Gibbs. Oh, they have Harvick and Byron. Now, I'd even throw Harvick over Byron. I think Harvick can beat Byron. And there you go. And now scroll to your
20-1.
There you go.
So if you put $10 down, $200.
That's easy money right there.
Easy money, yeah. Okay.
Granted, anything can happen, but if you don't like 4-1 and 5-1, but you like those drivers,
sure,
and you get matchups, you can. It's just another avenue. We've not really talked much about it on the show. That we'll bring more to it because we're already breaking down how they finish. So if we think they're going to finish top 3, top 5 matchups, you might as well double down. It's more than just an outright winner in this world. So,
and by the way, Ford's 250. And again, I think this is fairly equal because you are getting basically you are having to rely on Harvick and Logano, but it's been pretty even, you know. So I really wouldn't. This wouldn't be a bad one to take. Again, you could do the same thing. You can probably even put that into a parlay.
Yeah, you just play around, and then where that winner. I don't know if you had that up earlier, where it says winner. It says team props, driver prop winner.
Yep.
There's the top 3 and top 5s right there.
Yep, right there. So, all right. Let's see. So your top 3 picks?
I'm gonna have to go Truex, Larson, Harvick.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say Briscoe is my long shot. I just got a feeling about Briscoe this week.
Okay. Chase Briscoe. Boy, things were going so well for him, too.
That would be typical NASCAR if Chase Briscoe gets this one. That would talk about a storyline going into next week. Well, that would be one.
That was actually, I don't know when it was, because I got rid of him after the 14th race. And I stuck with him as long as I could, but that was a real bummer because again, I don't remember. He had that run of 3 straight top 5s.
Yeah.
After what?
Race
10 or something, and then is that must have been right around when they had the suspensions and they have a penalty too, right?
Yep. The 6 race suspension. Oh yeah, they got the levy head down.
So I don't see how you blame that on Chase Briscoe.
No.
So, you know, hey, you know what? Who knows? Maybe that's all that they need is if they get a win.
Sometimes we saw what he did in the playoffs last year.
Yeah. So, because right now they're almost like you would think that they're all in this mood of let's just get the season over with in a way.
Yep.
But a win could change everything. So
would change it. And they're transitioning to, I mean, he's going to be the lead driver, right? I mean, Harvick's going away. He's retiring. Josh Berry is not a full-time Cup driver, so he's got to still be learning. We don't know what they're doing with Almirola and Priest yet, but even if those two come back, Briscoe's the only other one that's won consistently. He's he won in Phoenix last year. So
that's it.
The 14 car, that's it. He's your lead driver, so you kind of have to see some out of him.
So got that crew chief change. They're just switching Berry for Harvick.
Barry's going to Harvick. So that 14 car, which was the initial staple for Stewart-Haas Racing, that was Tony Stewart. That 14 car is going to be where Harvick There's no doubt about it. Harvick is the lead car of that team.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be the 14 next year. It's going to be Briscoe.
So why don't they? I mean, shouldn't they just clean house and just go Briscoe and 3 new drivers?
You kind of get the hint that might end up happening. It's Priest and is a 1-year deal. The only reason I think the Almirola thing they want him around is he brings that sponsor. Smithfield loves Almirola.
Doesn't that get old? Come on.
And they need, because you got to think with them too. They just lost Anheuser-Busch. That's going to Chastain. You're losing sponsorship. You're losing your A driver. You kind of need the sponsorship of Smithfield to stay. It's just, does Almirola want to keep going? Because the writing's on the wall. He's not going to be there much longer, if at all, next year.
Yeah,
so
let's get it over.
It's kind of pull the Band-Aid off. You are what you are. Briscoe, be the leader. Get him Barry and 2 more drivers, and off you go.
So next week is Michigan.
Next week's Michigan,
and so we haven't seen. It's 1 a year now, right? Michigan.
Yep.
And so, do you remember if the race was any good last year?
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was better with this next gen. And the most comparable will be Fontana, but they're not really the same because the surfaces are completely different. Michigan's been repaved in the last few years, where Fontana was original. So they're just similarly shaped.
Harvick holding.
Yeah, Harvick won last year. Yep.
Yeah, it looked like it because you had 6 drivers that all led at least 22 laps. And the leading driver led 38, and that was Hamlin and Harvick. So that showed you how
wide open.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's good. All right, that's next week, and then we still have a little ways to go before playoff time. This week, I believe, CJ. I think this is the last F1 race for a month.
Yeah, then they take their summer break. No, they've had too many races this year.
Jesus.
I looked at their odds when I was on there. The second best odds is plus 900. It is just Verstappen and everybody else.
I mean, seriously, if you're the type of gambler, because I'm not, but if you're the type of gambler that does not care about wagering and giving away, 300 to make 100, how is that? How, after the 3rd or 4th race even, how would you not just do F1 and just put? Hey, all right, I'll put 30,000 on Verstappen, and I'll make 10 grand. I know, I don't have to worry.
Yeah.
He'll win.
Yep,
I got the money.
That's pretty much where it is.
I would probably do that, and I don't ever do it like that. But if I had the money, I'd probably be like, yeah, I'll just keep betting Max Verstappen. I mean, and even if he loses 1 week, I'll come back and I'll do it for 10 straight races, and I'm sure I'll still make money.
Yeah, you'll win. Like right now, he's minus 360.
I'm surprised he's not minus 600.
I'm too, because if you put 500 on him, you're going to win $638. So great, like you said, you're throwing your money away to win your money back. But he's won 7 straight races or 6 straight races, and he's won the last 2 at this track, so it's pretty clear.
Again, that type of betting is just about, do you have the money? That's all it is.
Yep.
But if you lose, of course, and you put up $400 to try to make $100, you've lost $400 instead of just losing 100. But again, if you have the money, I do it. I don't care if I make a quick $100. I'll put up $400. I'm not going to lose. How can I lose? He never loses. So that's how I'd play it. But anyway,
or even a minus 700 for a top 6.
Yeah,
he's been in the top 6. I feel like every day of his life. It seems like
that's why I can't. That tells me that people are not doing that enough.
No,
because if they were, it would be at 600 or 700.
Yep.
I don't know why, but all right. Okay, we'll talk again as usual next week, Eric. Appreciate it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, and we appreciate you guys. Don't forget, sign up at Discord and like the video if you're still here watching.